Hey there, listeners. Welcome to the Portside Podcast, the podcast where young is a word, but not a number. Your podcast for young cruisers. My name is TJ. I'm your host. And if you're new here, I just want to remind you to like, subscribe, comment, and enjoy the show. Welcome, young cruisers. Let's get right into it. So, my name's TJ, and I am a fellow younger cruiser. And I feel like one of the first questions I should ask as the first episode of this Portside podcast is, why did I make this podcast? Why? Why a podcast for cruisers at your age group? Like, I am 25 currently. Yeah, I know. I'm getting up there in age, people. Eventually, it's not going to be called the podcast for young cruisers. No, I'm playing. But I'm in my mid-20s, right? And I, throughout my cruising experience, because I've been cruising since I was in my teens. So throughout my cruising experiences, I have personally felt like there's like multiple perspectives, and I feel experiences that people have depending on what you're looking for when you go into a cruise. And I feel from my first cruise when I was much younger, I was more confused. Like I didn't really know what cruising really was. I didn't really find it interesting at that time. I didn't understand, like, oh, my family's like, we're going on a cruise, and it's like, well, what does that mean? If you're gonna be on a boat for a week, okay, like you don't really know, or at least I didn't really know what I was supposed to expect when going on a cruise. I didn't look it up. I wasn't that person going on YouTube and looking up all those videos of the boat I was going on with excitement, and I didn't know. I did not know. And I just thought that this podcast, or there should be a forum or a open discussion area such as this podcast, where young cruisers can come together and kind of just talk and discuss their experiences as cruisers at a much younger age than the average cruiser that a lot of these companies are looking at, right, or focused on. Because now I really get a chance to like make a podcast where our opinions, views, and experiences matter more than ever, and they come into play. And it just compounds, right? It compounds because with the coronavirus, it effectively knocked the entire cruising industry on its side. And I don't know if they've been, like, I don't know what they've been thinking about. I've been keeping up with news, but internally, I don't know fully what the executives in the big three, such as Royal Caribbean, Norwegian, and Carnival, have been sitting down and asking themselves, like, okay, a lot of folks in our age group were susceptible to the virus. We're catching the virus. We're in trouble. We're getting very sick from the virus. And yet a lot of people who are in the younger age really kind of weren't, right? So, of course, I feel bad, and my condolences go out to anybody who has lost anybody due to the virus. But in the state of cruising, like, this would be a perfect time to start putting money when they start back up into trying to effectively push the narrative that cruising is only for a specific age group or it's only for the family. Push that away and kind of focus on a younger cruise audience, a younger potential buyer audience, to build brand loyalty throughout their time getting older, or their time going on vacations, going on cruises, and growing up, right? So for me personally, with the situation that happened with the virus, and then amazingly with the launch of Virgin Voyages by Virgin Mobile, Richard Branson, the billionaire, I feel like this is just the perfect time to start a podcast where we discuss these topics. Like, what do people who are young and cruise and enjoy it and like to go on the cruises, what are they thinking about? Like, what do they have to say about the I guess the status of the industry as it is now? And I thought, let's do it. Let's just make a podcast where I talk about cruising. I want to preface something. I am not an expert. Do not come to me with questions that are very higher level or higher expectation. Like, oh, what is the tonnage of this specific new boat? That it's like I could get that, I could find that, but I feel like going into this podcast with more of a raw, not so professional or not sense of like a advisor or a critic point of view allows me to kind of like just convey that this is more of a chill environment. Like, I won't be just talking about the industry from the perspective of somebody who hasn't had the time that a lot of older cruisers and even people in my family have had, who have leveled up in the perks and rewards group of some of these cruise lines. Like, they're long gone. I'm lucky enough to have gone up one group like level in all of the big three, right? So I can't exactly remember how each of them functions. I would need to get a refresher on that, and then convey that to you guys. I will let you know what cruises I have been on, the time periods, and what boats I've been on, because those matter, right? Because for 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 somebody who's only been on Carnival cruises, right, and only been on cruises on Carnival's older ships, I don't feel like that person has a well-rounded um a well-rounded viewpoint of the cruising industry and the range of which the cruising industry can be, and the different types of genres and people and settings and environments and themes that they can experiences, of course, that they can experience on going on different cruise ships throughout the big three. And I know there's more than the big three for America, as I am in America. I know there's more. There's, oh, you have Cunard, and you have um Princess, which is owned by Carnival, I believe. So yeah, but yeah, I know. Like, I understand that there are other cruise lines, but my family and my experience has been focused around the big three: Carnival, Royal Caribbean, or Norwegian Cruise Line. And I feel like that is a good place to start the conversation with those who are young, who are teenagers, who are young adults, mid 20s, even in their 30s, mid 30s, who just either haven't cruised and would like to know, like, oh, I didn't think about that cruise line or that ship or this or that, rather than be over overwhelmed by just the sheer amount of choice. Like, I'm just gonna say it straight out. You're really gonna hear conversation about Viking cruise lines on this podcast, because I'm aware that they exist, but the clientele they service and the level of cost and just atmosphere that they appeal to, I feel as if is a little bit too much for the beginner cruiser. Unless you're specifically looking for that, then that's a whole nother conversation. And also a whole nother amount of cost. But I feel like for this podcast, focusing on simply the more commercial cruise lines for America is just easier to stomach for those who would come into this podcast and be like, all right, what's this about? So that's why I started the podcast. This is a great time to do so. I would love, like, my dream is to like go on like one of the Virgin Voyages trips and just really do like a whole podcast is on that boat. On the what's it called? The Scarlet Lady? Like, even the names are just so interesting. It is literally a cruise line specifically just for young adults, it seems. And I wake up every day, and sometimes, I just look up and go, please let Virgin Voyages succeed. Like, they, please, through all this, let them succeed. It is unfair that we finally get something of our own. And what happens, people? The cruise industry comes to a screeching halt. It is awful that happened. And also, um, I I kind of want to bring up real quick the fact that the cruise industry went to that halt and we lost a lot of ships. So, moment of silence for those ships that were lost and had to be sold off or parted out during the coronavirus event, due to the pandemic event. I mean, due to the loss of revenue from a lot of these cruise industries, right? These cruise companies. So my biggest thing for that is a question that I kind of ask myself and kind of want to hear from others who are in the cruise industry. Like, so what does that mean for like pricing, right? So if Carnival got rid of some of its older ships, a lot of those older ships, as you'll hear when I recite the cruises I've been on, those older ships were actually very affordable. Those older ships were a perfect entry point for those who wanted to get into cruising on the cheap, right? Now, I personally at this point wouldn't recommend, if you're young, to go on one of Carnival's older ships for a holistic experience on cruising. I feel like for those type of situations, I think Royal Caribbean does it much better as the middleman between luxury light or Princess Light, that is Norwegian Cruise Line, and for the more party-esque, younger, working class clientele, that is Carnival. I feel Royal Caribbean is the family-oriented cruise ship. I think it's perfectly in the middle. And I think, of course, with the Oasis class and like you can't not like pay attention to any move that Royal Caribbean decides to make in the industry at this point. I feel like Carnival honestly is playing catch up to their Oasis class. I feel like Norwegian's playing catch up, but not in a bad way. In a way that has led them to see that those ships of that size and that magnitude, with all those amenities, are actually wanted in the industry. Now, experience while you're on the boat with people and with the scheduling of different events and entertainment, that, as somebody who hasn't been on the Oasis class yet, that has yet to be said. I feel like most people have good experiences, but I have ran into issues with Royal Caribbean, specifically with like nickel and diming on the boat. And I feel like there comes a point where I almost don't blame them. Like, I went on the Anthem, spoilers, I went on the Anthem of the Seas, and I could understand, like, with the level of technology and just aesthetic and effort that they put into building these ships. Like, I almost don't blame them for having things kind of be like nickel and dimed when you're on the boat. It's not really bad. It's not anything that like you have to buy if you really want to get the full experience. Most of it, really, you don't. Most of it you wouldn't even notice that you missed if you didn't buy it. But I understand why they're there. Now, as a younger person, of course, cost matters to me. So I tend to avoid things like the specialty restaurants. I go to one or two maybe, but not really my cup of tea. I'm more for the entertainment. I'm more for, the turn up, not the turn down. I'm more for the wave, what's it called? The wave rider and, such on the Anthem of the Seas in the back of the boat. The skydiving, simulate, like the crane that lifts you up into the sky. That I specifically remember, that was amazing. Allows you to see a 360-degree view of the entire ship and miles of sea, so far that you can literally see cargo ships way in the distance carrying cargo to wherever they're going. And I just think Royal Caribbean, like, that has to make up the cost somehow. And I want to do more research into how they're doing it, but like I said, I understand if you've gone to Royal Caribbean and have noticed a little bit more of the penny pinching and the nudges to buy things than the Carnival ships or the Norwegian ships. Some people would argue that they actually have less of that on Royal Caribbean, and you see more of that on Norwegian or Carnival. To each their own. But yeah, that's why I made the podcast. Like, this is a perfect time. Why not? And I don't know if there are any other people doing this. If there are, tell me about them. I would love to listen to them. But me, as a 25-year-old, 25-year-old male, saying like, all right, I'm doing this podcast and I'm not looking back. I'm just going to talk. I'm just going to do a podcast for young cruisers because I am one and I love cruising. Like, I really think it's a underrated vacation style. I think it's a very memed vacation style, and a lot of people wonder why anyone would want to be stuck on a boat with 7,000, 5,000 people. And like, why is that? It's like, well, you have to think about it. Is these are 7,000, 5,000, whatever thousand people who are all on vacation. So the vibes are pretty good. Like, it's effectively a small city where everyone's happy and getting waited on hand and foot, and has free entertainment venue. Like, you gotta imagine, like, you could see why people would kind of want to cruise, because it's really so curated. Yes, a lot of it is pre-planned and curated, but at the same time, it's an experience that I feel is something that is both detoxing and stress relieving at the same time, very up tempo, and it's really a make it what you want type of situation. And if you're like me and you're more of the introvert, I know that word gets thrown around a lot, you're more of the introvert type, it really allows you to bring yourself out and really kind of just go out, talk to people, meet people, learn where people are from, interact, have fun, go to these crazy shows, and really enjoy yourself, like, out there on that vacation time, because everyone else is going to be. And almost, I feel like there's like too much avoidance going on the boats, you know? Like, there's almost people kind of sticking to themselves too much, or their families too much. Like, more interaction would be great, and I feel like younger cruisers, maybe even on Virgin Voyages, are the kind of people that would definitely do that. But without further ado, after the answering of why I'm starting this podcast, let's get into the next topic, which are, what cruises have I been on? And how would I rate them on a scale of, say, 1 to 10? All right, let's get into it. Okay, let's get this started. So, my cruises, my history with cruising. Oh, going down memory lane, huh? Start with the first one, the Carnival Splendor. And I feel like a lot of people on a budget, their first cruise is probably going to be a Carnival cruise. That's perfectly fine. Carnival cruises are great. I know I said, oh, they're playing catch up. No, what I meant was that Royal Caribbean, I think, had the advantage of shaking the world when they first released the first Oasis class ship. So I think that where Carnival, unfortunately, has to kind of like move it at this rate is more explaining why their largest ship for their, largest class and for their company is a great competitor, if not why it's even better than a lot of the Oasis class ships for Royal Caribbean. And they have their specific reasons on board through entertainment or through, a special crazy gimmick that allows their ships to, stack up that way. And Norwegian, the same thing, right? The Oasis class gets a kind of a head start, and Norwegian's coming in with that heat. I forgot the name. See, the problem is that a lot of Norwegian ships, their names are like very similar. Like, as you'll see when I name all of the ships, but I can't remember the name of their newest ship, like their newest, largest ship. But I've seen it and it looks beautiful. So that's a great thing. I'm personally a Norwegian guy at my age now. When I was younger, I started out as a Carnival guy, but I'm a Norwegian guy now. Royal Caribbean, not for me. It's families, too many families, too many kids going around. I need a little bit of a balance there. I feel like Norwegian gives me the best balance of the class, kind of high upscale feeling, but at the same time, it's still affordable. And also, I feel like I get a good amount of everything with Norwegian. Whereas I have some trade-offs that come with being on Carnival or Royal Caribbean. But I digress. Back to the cruises, the ships. Starting with number 1, the Carnival Splendor. 8-night Eastern Caribbean. That was a pretty good first cruise. Like, it was such a time where I was exploring myself. I actually believe I was, 17, 18? I think at the time of getting on the ship, I was 18, but I was 17, I think, like, right before that. Like, it was right on my birthday. That cruise was actually pretty good. Like, I've heard people complain a lot about the Carnival Splendor, and I feel like when it was docked in New York, it was kind of like a good time to catch that boat because I personally liked it. The decor was very polarizing at the time. So many purples and pinks. I pretty sure they updated it now to a newer aesthetic, right? I actually didn't mind the old aesthetic. I know a lot of people think it's just too polarizing. I'm just like, eh. I feel like I feel like if I go on a cruise and it manages to get me to remember it, if anything, just by the theme that it was going for on the boat, I feel like that's a good thing. Like that's something I remember it by. So yeah, I'm gonna give that boat at least an 8 out of 10. That was an 8 out of 10 cruise because that was my first major cruise. That wasn't like a weekend one. That was my first like long get time to sit and think and all of that with that boat, and I really enjoyed it. I really, really, really enjoyed that cruise. And it wasn't perfect. And the reason why Carnival Cruises, ironically, after I just praised the whole like, oh, everyone's happy and everyone's on vacation thing and the people are cool and everything. The problem with Carnival Cruises is I feel like the low price can lead to some issues that I feel you don't really notice until you get on the boat. Like, remember a lot of Carnival ships at that time back in, when was that cruise? 2013? It was 2013, guys. A lot of the boats back then were not up to spec. Like, it was kind of bad. And you especially felt it when you were in the interior rooms. The interior rooms were not up to spec. They were not the best. And I know they updated them most likely by this point. But in 2013, Carnival's lineup, and it continues to be an issue as I keep going down my list. It was not a good time for the interiors, bro. And I'm sorry, but I have to give them major hits to that. Like, it was just not as comfortable. It wasn't as, I feel, as spacious as my Royal Caribbean and Norwegian ships. And regardless of what class I was in comparative to the later ships I mentioned at the time, I definitely feel that the fun I was having on the Carnival Splendor regarding the entertainment, regarding most of the people, because it gets like a half point for people because sometimes lower cost equals a very, and yeah, I'm trying to say this in a way that doesn't try to target or make it sound bad, but it's not, but it leads to kind of like a iffy clientele, you know? Like, not everyone is as respectable of others on the boat as you would assume, like, you're on vacation you would be. But that's just one of the things that come with Carnival. Like, you get a specific clientele. It is actually a younger clientele, to be fair. It is younger clientele. I think it's the youngest clientele out of the big three. So Carnival definitely is something that is a cruise line that I feel definitely gets its praises from the name of party boat. And I feel like they kind of earn that. They definitely do. Their prices earn it. Their clientele earns it. Their stops. Yes, I remember this. The actual stops that I went on, the actual islands and the stops that we had were actually like really fun. We're like really, really, really fun. So it was an 8-day cruise. We spent, I think it was 2 days at sea going to the destinations, and it was a San Juan, Puerto Rico, a St. Thomas stop, a Grand Turk stop, which are very, like, I mean, I feel like everyone's been on these stops multiple times if you've been on Carnival ships. Like, if you've done any Caribbean cruise of Carnival, you stop at St. Thomas, like, you've at least stopped there twice or 3 times. Don't lie to me, guys. You've been to St. Thomas more times than you really think you would ever be on St. Thomas. Grand Turk was cool. And then we had 2 days at sea, and then we returned to our destination, which was New York. Really good cruise. First cruise, definitely a good introduction to what cruising was. The comedy clubs on Norwegian are hilarious. I like Carnival's comedians that they choose. They're very diverse. Sometimes they can be very, highbrow and clean and kind of like very witty, and other times they can be very like raunchy, and it's pretty cool. One of the big issues, though, here we go, This is why you're listening to this podcast, people. One of the big issues was that because I was 18, I was deemed an adult on the boat coming right out of high school, preventing me from actually interacting with those who were more in my age group of late teens. But I gained access to all of the things those teens couldn't, such as adult venues, adult entertainment, and all of the nightly activities. Although 18 to 20-year-olds, I don't know if I do a whole video on this, guys. Leave a comment and tell me if I do a whole video on this. 18 to 20 on cruise ships are like purgatory. It is. If you're someone that feels like you can enjoy the night, going to the nightly nightclubs, going to nightly events, and you feel like you're a mature young adult, now you're fresh, you're 18, you can't drink, you're not technically really an adult, because when you go into the nightclub at night, you kind of get viewed as effectively an adult, but you're around those who are kind of like a bit older than you. You're around those who are now my age, pretty much, like mid-20s, early 20s, late 20s, and up. And I feel like it feels very much alienating to kind of know that you don't really have that social circle and age group around you to kind of connect with, that 18 through 12, and everyone's buying drinks, everyone's having fun, getting drunk and everything, and you're just kind of there like, I'm not allowed to do that. I'm allowed to go into every venue that has every curse word, raunchy joke, and the quest game that they usually play at the end of the ship, where there's literally people getting naked, and it's a whole crazy thing, but yet cannot be trusted with drinks in international waters. Of course, in America, it is 21 to drink. Cannot be trusted. And I feel as if that's kind of ridiculous. Honestly, that's kind of ridiculous. I'm not a big drinker, even now, but that kind of like was kind of a standout call of like your age and kind of like how you operated. And I feel as if now maybe they heard my calls and my in the feedback, I actually wrote that for feedback for Carnival. I was like, hey, you guys need something for the 18 to 20-year-olds. Seriously. Like more events, more ways to get together, more ways to kind of talk and hang out. Because I feel like a lot of cruise ships at the time, or cruise industry at the time, just ignored the younger cruisers. They ignored that age group. And if you are listening and you were in that age group, I want to let you know, I was in that position. I am an only child there. I'm an only child who had to go on the boat, and I didn't want to hang out with my older family the whole time. So I ventured off alone and hang on the boat, mostly kind of wandering by myself, talking and meeting people. Of course, like I said, it was a little bit hard because you're kind of like on your own and you're in an unfamiliar airspace. But when everyone's on vacation, the vibes are high. It's good. The vibes are good, and the energy's high. I feel like a lot of people then get to the point where they're really comfortable with just talking to people and approaching people. And I kind of made some cool friends on the boat, which I highly recommend everyone do. Just be open. We're all on vacation, people. And that added to the experience because it was able to give me a more well-rounded view of how going on a cruise would be for younger cruisers in my position. So if you are an only child, I have you with that viewpoint. I understand that struggle. And I will be the first person to say that you should be doing something that maybe you will feel really uncomfortable with, and you should go out and talk to people by yourself on the boat. Yeah, it sounds crazy, but enjoy yourself. It's your vacation too. And you're also probably never going to see most of those people ever again. So really go out and enjoy yourself. But yes, Carnival Splendor is the first cruise, and it was really actually pretty good. Cruise lines, you have to deal with Virgin Voyages now for the 18 and up cruisers, so please keep paying attention to 18 through 20 cruisers. They are a very dry couple of years in the cruising market. I'm sure I'm mid-20s now, but I'm sure at that time that I was basically just a absolute tiny little minute amount of like anything to the cruise industry. But as an entire cruise line rises up to compete in that space, and As I've watched and been on cruises, as you will soon hear, in the later years, they definitely in the daily activities added a lot of, not a lot, but added some events and meetups for those in the age group of 18 to 20. Good job. Good job, Carnival. Good job, all the cruise industry. We exist. Let them know. Give your feedback. I did. I let them know. Hey, this is a really cool experience, but I feel like I'm scheduled. I'm labeled as an adult, but not truly treated as one on these boats. So coming in second cruise is the Carnival Elation 5-night Western Caribbean from New Orleans. Here we go, people. Here we go, right? Right? The second Carnival cruise. Carnival Elation, another older boat. The same issues. I have to give this boat, honestly, a sheesh. It has to be like a 6 out of 10. Like, at this point, I'm starting to realize that Carnival ships just are not the kind of ships you want to go on if you're looking for the top tech at that time. At that time, it was early 2010s. It was 2014. I went on that cruise on the Carnival Elation, and it's just you feel it. Like you at those older ships, you can tell that they're just not updated yet. They're just not there. And before it, I'm sure these cruises, these boats, these ships, I know I call them boats. A lot of people hate when you say boats. Like, come on, man, they're called ships. It's like, yeah, all right, is it really that big of a deal? Is it really that big of a deal? I guess it is. But that ship, I think, along with the next Carnival ship that I've been on, which isn't next, but there's another one, I think there came a point where I just wanted to stop going on Carnival cruises. I did not want to deal with these older ships because their interiors were odd. Even the setup, the design of how they do crowd control and move people through the ship was really kind of odd and bland. And then at the same time, I also once again had to deal with the very old interior rooms. I know, like, oh, just get a suite. Yeah, well, not everyone has that kind of cash to blow for a suite. So I like the idea that when building new ships now, a lot of the interior rooms, a lot of the cheaper cabins are really taken into consideration in design and in how people who would be staying in those cabins would feel to be in them. Now, personally for me, of course, as a younger person, I did not stay in my cabin most of the time, as I feel like most cruisers don't. I didn't stay in my cabin. I explored, I went around, I interacted. So personally for me, I wasn't in the cabin a lot. So it's why I'm perfectly fine with getting interior cabins, because I'm not really in them but to change and sleep. And it's just not like I'm not really using the cabin much being on a cruise. I want to go out and experience all the events and, the boat. Ship, I know. Coming in next. And I'm not really going to mention the locations for the Carnival Elation. I mean, I'll do it just to do it, but I don't really feel like the Carnival, like, I feel like that cruise was one of the most forgettable ones. Even though it started in a pretty cool place, and I feel like the locations were actually pretty cool, but I can't really pinpoint like what was the memorable event on that cruise. I think it was just the scenery. I think it was just a nice aesthetic, a nice aesthetically pleasing cruise when it comes to location. So we started in New Orleans. We were at sea for one day in this one, surprisingly. Went to Cozumel, Mexico, and then traveled to Progreso, and then traveled to At Sea, and then back to New Orleans. So this one's a really short one, which is probably why it's not memorable. Personally, guys, shorter cruises are cheaper cruises, especially for Carnival. You get a younger clientele for shorter cruises because younger people cannot take vacation days off for too long. I want that to change so badly because longer cruises are, in my opinion, are much more enjoyable. Max about 2 weeks. Anything longer than that is a bit much, if not a lot much for younger people or being on the boat in general. But I think like 10 days should be a good amount for young people to really get the full experience and get to do what you want to do on the boat. Because I know that a lot of times it's really difficult to book these shows and book specialty restaurants and stuff because of how much the flood of people come in and take all these slots and spots, and it's impossible to get yourself these specific roles very easily. So, I feel like longer cruises help you with alleviating that kind of FOMO of me, you, whatever, wanting to get done all the excursions and all the um on board events that you want to go to and get done. On to the next one, the Norwegian Getaway 7-night Eastern Caribbean from Miami, and here's where it begins. This is where the love of Norwegian begins. Norwegian Getaway was a wonderful, beautiful ship. Let me tell you one thing that Norwegian does that I feel like we're both Royal Caribbean as far as I know, even on the anthem, yes. And Carnival does not do as good as Norwegian, and that is the food. The food on Norwegian Getaway made me a Norwegian fan. And I think you guys have to remember that. I think this boat ship was out for about not too long when I went on it. I think it was basically brand new at that point. So I don't know if they were just trying hard, but boy, oh boy, was the food amazing. I didn't mention the food on Carnival, if you noticed, because it wasn't something memorable. But I definitely noticed the breakfast, especially on Norwegian. On the Norwegian Getaway was just absolutely amazing. Oh my God, it was so good. It was so good. We took it off the boat. We took it off the ship. We brought the food home with us because it was so good. And just that last bit of remembrance of the cruise, effectively, like it was just that good. I don't know. Starts in Miami, has a day at sea, has 2 days at sea actually, then goes to St. Thomas, here we go again, and then goes to the Virgin Islands, which is really cool. Then we get a couple days at sea. We stop in Nassau, which is surprisingly really interesting, but also a little bit kind of empty, you know? Like, I feel like Nassau is one of those places where people would have issues on deciding what to do because most people really want to go to Atlantis. But it's a situation where it's like, it's kind of pricey. And then you actually ask yourself, like, for the time I'm spending at that park, is it really worth the money? Maybe exploring would be much easier. So when you go to Nassau, guys, just ahead of time, make sure you kind of have an idea of what you want to do. Because personally for me, like, we decided that, like, all right, we don't really want to spend the money to hang out in Atlantis and do the slide that goes underwater. You see the fit. Yeah, that's cool and all. But exploring the island of Nassau was actually really cool as well. So it just depends on the kind of person you are. And then we ended back in Miami, Florida, which was pretty cool actually. It's pretty cool. Interesting cities. An interesting city was Miami. So yeah, the Norwegian Getaway, I think it just did it for me. It just was like I want to go on more Norwegian ships. Like I knew I was a fan right then and there. That ship was amazing for its time back in the day. Then hard pivot. Are you ready? Hard pivot to just going way left field here. The Rhapsody of the Seas, Royal Caribbean, 11-night Eastern Mediterranean starts in Venice. That's right, we are off to Europe, people. First international cruise. One of the first times, if not the first time, I think I went out of the country. I've been to Jamaica a couple times, so I guess the first time I went out of the country for a cruise, that is. So this cruise, I feel, isn't even fair. Like, it's not fair to rank this cruise because the Rhapsody of the Seas, albeit a smaller and older ship, it's this itinerary, the locations are insane. It was too good. It beats anything else, any other boat I've ever been on. It's not possible to beat this. Like, the cruise starts in Venice, Italy, where we stayed for a couple days. We go to sea for 1 day. We go to Greece. We go to Olympia, people. I get to see the monuments and the beautiful city of Olympia. Then we go to Crete. How do you say that? How do you pronounce that one? But we went there. I don't have any memories of what I did there. I don't have any memories. I remember it being very beautiful and the architecture just being very like colonial and very different compared to what I know and where I live. Following that, we then go to Athens. Do I even have to explain Athens? like Greek mythology, all the history that goes on there. Like, do I really have to explain Athens? A great tourist town, in my opinion. But I didn't get to really explore more of just the raw town of, like, the raw city of Athens. of Greece, of like Athens, Greece. So I was more just a tourist there, but visiting, like I said, all the monuments there was really cool. The hiking was really cool. It wasn't that hot. It was sunny though, but it was a very beautiful, beautiful location. And I feel like I can never get the pictures, like the mental pictures and the real ones that I took with my camera out of my head. Like it's definitely some place I want to return to. It's something that it it's a kind of beauty that I feel like living where I live is just like I feel it's something to take advantage of. Like I can't believe it. Like that place was absolutely jaw-droppingly beautiful. And then it just gets better as we go to another Greek city. Guys, I'm going to butcher this name, but I have to say it because I can't just say it. And then I went to Greece again. Like, but where? Where, TJ? Thessaloniki. Thessaloniki. Somebody please correct me and don't just leave me hanging with that in the comment section. Thank you very much. I don't remember much of that area. I do remember it being more like condensed though. I remember it being more city-like and it felt more like back in New York. So I'm just like, oh, isn't this wonderful? This feels more at home. I like this. Cars whizzing by, everyone not even paying attention. Like I got stuff to do today. Like that was a cool little city atmosphere. I think we actually did a tour for that one. Did a tour bus. So that was really cool to drive around and watch the day go by, watch everyone live their lives. People watching, really touristy event going on over there. Then these names don't get easier. You can please correct me in the comment section. I go to Turkey. I go to Ephesus, I think. Really cool place. Now, a lot of people are going to ask like, oh, what makes that place so cool, huh? What makes that place so cool? I think what made that place cool was that I I feel like I didn't know what to expect, Like at this point, simply going to Venice, Italy blew my mind. You got to understand now we're sailing around the Mediterranean. I've never even heard of the majority of these locations. So I feel like that area surprised me due to its very quaint, quiet at the time nature, and it's kind of like it's kind of so different from the last place location we went to, right? So the last location was more city like, and then here comes this one that is more, port like, and then of course we level up with the next location on the Rhapsody of the Seas being Santorini. Now, for those of you who don't know, Santorini, the White City. So Google a picture of Santorini. Go on Instagram and type in Santorini, and you see all those people who invoke your FOMO very hard by taking pictures in that city, in that cliffside city, the White City. Yeah, I was there, guys. I was there. Like it. So now, whenever I see that picture and people go, "Oh my gosh, isn't that place beautiful?" and I just laugh and go, "Hey, I went there," and then like, no, what? Hey, I got pictures. Here, look, I've been there. I went to that city. You see that beautiful, beautiful white city with the blue tops on the homes? I was there. I don't have to look at it through a picture and wish. I actually was there. It was beautiful as it looked. What they don't tell you, though, is when you go up, you have a choice to go down via the cliffside. And going down that insanely long, crazy amounts of steps, which were not leveled, kind of slippery, and I think it's a troll. I think they're messing with us. They're just like, yeah, tourists, you want the real experience? You walk down these steps over here. I was like, I see a lot of people from my boat walking down these steps. I don't see a lot of the people who are native to this area walking up and down these cliffside on the slippery steps. So I feel like there's a camera somewhere that just waits for people to slip and fall, and it's like a compilation of like Santorini's funniest tourist videos, and it's just all of us slipping and falling, looking like idiots. And honestly, I'm with it. It was it was definitely an experience. Some people could go down and like I think it was like mules. I'm pretty sure it was mules or donkeys, and that's an option. But nah, man, we're doing this the real way. We just going down with our own 2 feet. We slip when we fall. Well, we slip when we fall. That's how it works. Pay $30,000 for medical attention. in Santorini. But that place was jaw-droppingly beautiful. Like, jaw-droppingly beautiful. That's a place where you have to stay more than one day. Like, you can't just stay a couple hours that the cruise time allows you. Like, you have to stay more than one day, which is ironic for this cruise because of what happens at the end that I'm going to mention. But Santorini is a must-go for anyone, bro. A must-go for anyone. Then we had a day at sea. Then we leveled up with the last, like, basically the last location we actually go to, which is Dubrovnik, Croatia. Oh my gosh, Dubrovnik. Yeah, ever heard the show called Game of Thrones? If you've ever heard of Game of Thrones, they filmed there. That's King's Landing, people. So we actually got to go to the location of the filming of King's Landing. Of course, they weren't filming there at the time, which was actually good because it's probably why we got the chance to go in so many areas. But when I tell you guys that place was freaking beautiful, and if those algorithms didn't hate me and hate people who say bad words the way they do, a bad word would be said, because that place is expletive beautiful. It's worth it. Not really. Not worth the demonetization, but it's worth it. It's really nice. And if you're a Game of Thrones fan, the idea that they have a mock throne, like a mock king's throne, oh man, like I can't even, like I'm just reminiscing and I'm already just losing track of the podcast doing so. Amazing place. So I recommend Dubrovnik. I know the Game of Thrones is over. The city of Dubrovnik's probably happy it's over. Like, oh, finally this thing's over. Now we can go back to normal life, at least tourists. But I remember literally walking into that city, and it's like a fortress. It's a real fortress. Like, can you believe it? These people live in a fortress. Like, their gate comes down, and they walk into the city over. Like, what? I'm from America. I'm from New York. Like, what? Like, all our bridges are paid toll to go through, and they don't come down all cool. Most of them don't, anyway. If not all of them, don't. Not ones I know or live near. And I feel like, man, how come we don't get cool drawbridges that's like in the old days? Let's build the moat too. You know, just build the whole moat around like every borough of New York City, and let's just have drawbridges come down. Like, everyone has to wait 20 minutes to go across the George Washington and then pay $15. Oh man. But Dubrovnik was really cool, and the people there very nice, very very helpful too. In case you wanted to know anything, so I really enjoyed this cruise. In general was just unfair. Like, the locations basically put this cruise as a 9, even though there's not much of anything to say about the Rhapsody of the Seas. It was a very uninspiring boat, honestly. Like, and then I feel like the Europeans on that cruise, because it's longer and because of the time I was taking it, they're not really partiers, so the club was kind of empty. It wasn't really at the amount that I would be comfortable with. I feel like they're just not that kind of culture, or just that ship I went on and that length of time that I was on the boat wasn't applicable to a lot of people my age, so the nighttime activities weren't as vibrant as I feel they normally would be. But what was cool about this cruise is that it did something that no other cruise I've ever been on yet has done, where instead of having a sea day where we then get to the location and have to disembark the ship, it actually went back to Venice and just sat there and said, hey, yeah, get off the ship and come back whenever you want. We can get off the ship in Venice and go back on the ship whenever we want for that night. I meant to say night, guys. Sorry, this is an edit. I meant to say night. This is the first boat that docked overnight and allowed us to get back on the ship. Just wanted to make that clarification. That changed, like, another game changer that should definitely happen more in like America. But the thing is, because the European cities are so much smaller, that it was so much easier to just get off the boat and walk to an area where we could go get some drinks at a bar and just relax and talk and meet people. So the walk off the boat to that plaza area was really cool. Getting back on the boat drunk after you visited the city, that was really cool. this is just a lot of really cool experiences. Cruising in Europe is really cool. That's the end lesson here. Cruising Europe is really cool. I just wish that the ship that you noticed I didn't talk about a lot had more going on for it. Very typical entertainment, very typical comedy. It actually wasn't comedy that was like European specific, surprisingly. If anything, I think the comedian was American. Hmm. So yeah, I feel like that boat ship was the most uninspiring, but the cruise overall was just unforgettable because of the locations we actually stopped at. So I'm gonna have to give the Rhapsody of the Seas, 11 Night Eastern Mediterranean. I'm giving that a 9 out of 10. Like the Rhapsody was so inoffensive, honestly, that it just only takes a point off as a whole comparative to the experience I had going around Europe. So, this is a long episode, people. Changing it up, we are going now to the Carnival Fascination. The time when I officially realized I am done with carnival ships because another old carnival boat. And yes, carnival, I'm going to do it every time, people. I'm going to knock points off for carnival's non-updated ships. At the time, I did not go on any of these ships when they were updated, so I had to suffer the consequences of such. Oh man, oh man, oh man. I think they called them the fun ship updates when they started updating all the older ships. Think about it, kind of money that's all kind of like, down the drain now, seeing as a lot of them got kind of scrapped. But let me tell you guys, fun ships, fun atmosphere, truly party ships, old ships. Food, not really that amazing. Entertainment, pretty okay. The people who are involved in entertainment, really cool. And the thing is, I think for every carnival ship, our what do you call them? The cruise director, the entertainment director, I feel as if they were the best on carnival. Like they're the most like dedicated to making sure that you're enjoying yourself. Less like stern management and more like, hey, what's going on? How are you? And they were just very open. They're very cool. And I think that Carnival has a massive like chip in their hand that they could use, but they don't. Like they were sending all of the younger cruisers on ships that were unfulfilling and just almost a disappointment comparative to what you pay a couple $100s more and you get on like a pretty advanced ship on one of the other cruise lines, one of the other big three, comparative to what you were getting on like the Carnival Fascination that I said. Like it's just not worth it for the ship, I think. And then when you had the locations, they weren't exactly anything crazy. It's basically another San Juan cruise. So are you ready? Guess where we went, guys? Guess. That's right. St. Thomas. I'm telling you, if you've been on a carnival cruise, you've been to St. Thomas at least 3 times a minimum. And that doesn't mean that you can't love it every time. Like, who doesn't love a lot of the carnival stop events like Margaritaville or Senior Fog? Like, who doesn't love just hanging out with the carnival party people and going out to those bars and areas and just getting drinks and chilling? And the coolest thing, too, is that I'm pretty sure it wasn't in Puerto Rico, but I forgot where it was, where drinking actually was 18 to drink. So I'm pretty sure it's the Caribbean islands where it's like 18, or who knows what it is really. But I was able to buy drinks without even ask for an ID. I just looked old enough, I guess, at that point. And I actually really enjoyed that time. It's not because of the drinking, but the idea that I was holistically an adult, treated as such, and thus could move as such, was very comforting without knowing there were some restrictions and, oh, you can't do that, like on the boat. You can't do that, but you can do this. The locations: St. Thomas. At sea, of course. We went to Barbados, which is actually really cool. I actually like Barbados. I need to go back there. I feel like not enough cruises really stop at Barbados, so I really enjoyed that one. We stayed at St. Lucia, another surprise hit there. See, it's like they have a bunch of surprise hits, and then they give you like St. Thomas as like the filler. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you can't have all good. We need to give you one stop. That just makes us that money, So St. Lucia was one of the stops, and then St. Kitts. So, and then we went to St. Martin, which I don't even remember Phillipsburg. So, yeah, at some point, these carnival cruises are very high activity driven. They're like activity driven, right? They're high octane fun, but then you take some trade offs with that level of activity, and I don't understand why Carnival does that. I'm sure after the pandemic event and them consolidating their ships, I'm sure they re-evaluated how they're going to go about this whole thing at this point, or they didn't, and we're just going to get more expensive cruising, which I'm expecting anyway, which hurts, of course, the bottom line. And at some point, if cruising gets so expensive regarding the big three that I might as well just buy a Virgin Voyages ticket anyway, I'm just going to buy a Virgin Voyages ticket, honestly, guys. Straight up. So that's the Carnival fascination. I feel like I don't really need to go into it anymore. I feel like I'm not bashing Carnival. I'm not bashing Carnival. I understand their pros and cons to all of the big three, but personally for me, Carnival is just, its ships are just having issues with keeping up, because think about it, right? I went on the Carnival fascination, and then the next ship I went on, the Anthem of the Seas for Royal Caribbean. So you guys gotta understand, like, going on the Anthem of the Seas after going on the Carnival fascination is, it's like it's like a speechless moment, right? You're like, oh, all right, we're on Carnival fascination. All right, so what's next? So Royal Caribbean. Okay, let's see what this ship has. What? The Anthem, I'm telling you, Royal Caribbean, they're just unmatched. Like, their technology. And yeah, it's gimmicky. Yeah, go ahead, say it. It's gimmicks. A lot of gimmicks. It's gimmicky. But these gimmicks are so interesting. They're so fun. Like, I like the gimmicky stuff. I like the robo bar. Like, I like that stuff because it's something that I could take a picture of, show a friend, and be like, bro, can you believe they have robot bartenders on this boat? And also, in real time, be interested and involved during the moment that, like, wow, this is actually pretty cool. And I think the Anthem of the Seas brought me to Royal Caribbean as like a dominant, like, figure for me in my headspace, in my opinion, in the technology space. In the technology space, in the forward thinking space, I feel like Royal Caribbean for a long time at that point, before even the Anthem class, was just totally on the money. Like, they were just hitting it out the park every time. And the Anthem was just another hit. At that time, I think the Anthem was like the most advanced cruise ship or something ridiculous. It was amazing. Now, like I said, Royal Caribbean's biggest issue is their push towards more of a family-oriented cruise. There are just way too many kids running around. It's like, and that's not an issue, but for me, as a young adult, walking down the steps drunk at 2:30 a.m., you know, on parts of the ship, and I happen to look left beneath the steps, and there's 20 kids mobbing around, just like looking at me like, man, I thought I was in the wrong part of town, you know. I thought I was like, oh, I guess I'm on G Block, you know. I didn't know you guys ran the ship. Like, this is the part where I get jumped from my key card, and they just blow it all on arcade. They like take my key card and spend it all on arcade. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's just a lot of, I feel, family that effectively had a bunch of kids that were not really being attended to, and they're not the issue, right? Like, I'm not saying that like the existence of them are the issue. I'm just saying that, like, when you have a cruise that is heavily marketed or heavily skewed towards family friendly events or family appropriate culture, it kind of, I think, naturally just kind of skews a lot of the experiences for the more adult oriented cultures, right? From the more mature cultures. But all the events and the nightclub and everything was really good per se for the Anthem. I just Royal Caribbean, I just feel like it's just that perfect, like, they try to play like to that point, like, and I'm not saying they're fighting off Disney. I'm just saying they're playing to that specific clientele a lot. And I understand the bottom line. I understand making profit. I understand how, like, a business. But I don't know. I feel like I'm at the age where, like, I want to go on a cruise that's more curated towards just the adult, like just adults or just people who are more of a adult circle, yeah, as such. And then last but not least, ending it off strong, 2019, the Norwegian Breakaway. Real quick for the anthem, I'm just gonna name off the locations because I feel like I don't have many memories of anything crazy or interesting happening in any of these locations. It was all interesting. I enjoyed my time. I'm just saying, like, I don't have any specific excursions or anything I want to bring up. Excursions for me, by the way, because you notice I didn't mention excursions at all here. Excursions for me are things that are activities that are like interesting depending on the person. Like what you may think is cool to do, like, oh, I went on the zip line. And you're like, yeah, that's pretty okay. You're just holding on and you're going down the line, pretty much guided line. And then you have things like I did like in one of the cruises I did, I think it was like buggies or whatever, or like the carts where we get to drive them around, and that was pretty cool. But like I said, it's excursions are something that I can't really tell. I can only tell you like what I think, but I feel like every excursion is just different for a certain type of person. The ones that sound fun are usually gonna be fun. The ones that are like, oh, we're gonna go rafting, or we're gonna do go karting, or we're gonna do like those are fun, obviously. Like, do you? I feel like you're asking more like, hey, how did it go? Was it worth it? And my answer is yeah. It's worth it, yeah. But if you feel like the price to fun factor isn't what you're trying to do, then don't do it. And just go go into something else. Like I feel like excursions are very very like subjective. So I try not to get into them too much, and then you get to the price of it's worth the money. Well, is worth the money to you? Is the question, right? So then stopped at started in New Jersey. Day at sea, stopped at King's Wharf, and this is for the Anthem of the Seas. Another day at sea, stopped at St. Martin. I'm telling you, man, a lot of these places, here we go again, San Juan. A lot of these places are very repetitive. Labadee, which is Royal Caribbean's private island, which I think they have another one, Coco Cay, right? I haven't been there, but that basically looks like a Six Flags on an island with water. So that's pretty cool. That's not pretty cool. That is cool. That is extremely cool, and I hope to one day be able to visit the Coco Cay Island. Hopefully, when I go on the Oasis class, as that is another dream, like actually going on an Oasis class ship. Somebody watching this, you're watching this podcast. Somebody listening to this is like, bro, like it's not even that hard. Just go on the Oasis ship. It's like, yeah, it's expensive, and to cruise every year back to back to back, I really have to think about like, all right, like what boat am I gonna go on? What's the build up? What's the cost? You have to take everything into account. So one day is what I'm saying. One day I will get on an Oasis class ship. One day. The Norwegian Breakaway, though, as the last ship I have been on back in 2019 before the whole world then turned upside down, was, let's see, Norwegian Breakaway. It was a 7-night Western Caribbean starting in Miami, as I'm pretty sure most of them do. Like a lot of them do. Orlando, Fort Lauderdale. Yeah, a lot of them start in Miami. Yeah. Starts in Miami. I meant start in Florida. Sorry. Most of them start in Florida anyway. Now, here's some crazy spots we went to. We went to Honduras. I remember that. Honduras was actually really nice. It was a very beautiful, chill, relaxed atmosphere. It kind of reminded me of Jamaica, but like in a smaller scale sense, right? Then went to Belize, another beautiful one. Went to Costa Maya, went to Mexico. I think I've been there before, but it was still nice to go anyway. With the next stop being Cozumel and then ending off back in Miami. Norwegian Breakaway, once again, same thing as the Norwegian Getaway. Great food, great atmosphere, great aesthetics. Great. Norwegian just, I think, goes above and beyond to just have a very, like, leveled and kind of straightforward, like experience, effectively. And I actually really like that. I really like that I know what to expect when I get on a Norwegian ship at this point. And I feel like it's all quality across the board. and I think that Norwegian's just my go-to at the moment right now. But that's not to say any of the future ships. Maybe when I go in the Oasis class, I'll understand the greatness of Royal Caribbean. Maybe when I go on Carnival's newest ship, the Panorama, or I think the Sunshine, I'll understand more of their newest ships. But I just feel like right now that Norwegian is just absolutely just too good for me right now. But yeah, that's it. That's all the ships I have been on. This episode has been pretty long, like just naming off all the cruises. But I feel like telling all of you that gives you a good look into where my mindset's coming from and my opinions on cruising. And I want to do videos on Virgin Voyages. I want to do reactions on Virgin Voyages. Like, I want to give you guys content on, of course, that cruise line, because that cruise line is specifically geared towards our age group. So I feel as if I'm going to work on giving you content heavily skewed towards that. I'm going to give you content on cruise news, cruise updates. So if you're not seeing a full episode of the Portside podcast, you will see mini-sodes of the Portside podcast, which is just a way for me to get content out as I kind of roll in the podcasting episodes. And I just feel like that's an easier way for me to keep the content flowing to you all. So that way none of you ever get bored. It's like, oh, where's the content? It's like, here it is. Get like a 30-minute mini-sode this time. And I guarantee you'll get the full hour or however long podcast next time. But everyone, thank you for sticking around. Thank you for hearing me out. This has been the first episode of the Portside podcast. This is the first episode of who knows where this goes. And I hope that after hearing my cruise experience, which I realized I forgot to rank the last two. But judging by how it sounds, let's just give the Norwegian Breakaway a 9 out of 10. Got to give Norwegian high marks. I feel as if they never really have let me down yet. And I'm just going to give the Anthem of the Seas a 9 out of 10 because at that point it was almost brand new and it was absolutely unlike anything technologically that I have been on in my life. And I'd have to give that cruise ship all the props it deserves for it being so high tech at the time. And I was just obsessed with that. So 9 out of 10 and 9 out of 10. But that's pretty much it. That's where I want to leave this episode, just explaining to you all that that's my history. That's why I'm starting the podcast. Leave in the comments your experiences on your cruise ships. Maybe rank them best to worst, 1 out of 10, or don't rank them. Just say good or bad. How was your experiences? What do you think as a younger cruiser was an experience that you feel like was really like over the top, that really made that cruise for you, or something that as a younger cruiser that you feel is things that these ships can really get better at when dealing with younger cruisers? So regardless of age, because I don't care what your age is really when you're here. Young is a word, it's not a number. So I could care less. But I do want to know, like, what are your experiences? Because we're going to be talking a lot about younger experiences. We're going to be talking things about nighttime activities. We're going to be talking about reviewing the nightclubs on each boat that I just mentioned, actually. We're going to be talking about future cruises. We're going to be talking about news in the cruise industry. So check out the mini-sodes when they come out of me just recapping the news, just giving my opinions, how I feel. Shout out to Norwegian. I'm going to do like most likely a video on them having their highest booking like ever in like their history. So that's amazing. Like, can you imagine like Norwegian Cruise Lines reports biggest booking day in its history, which could be fluff. I'm feeling like it's not. I feel like this is pretty legit. Like, people are itching to go back cruising, including this guy here. Everyone, thank you for listening. This has been TJ, and enjoy the outro, and I'm out of here. Hey there, listeners. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. But before you go, I just want to let you know, whether you're a content creator looking for exposure, a business owner looking to advertise, or simply looking just to give a birthday shout out, you can do so by contacting me at theportsidepodcast@gmail.com. This is your host TJ, signing off.